Okami. It's one of those titles that you might have heard was a good game, but never played it. And I can tell you it's not a good game. It's a great one. For everybody who says that there's no good third-party games for the Wii, this one is proof that it's not true. If you don't know, this was originally a PS2 game. Then they ported it to the Wii. I was one of the 12 people who bought it for the PS2, and I thoroughly enjoyed the entire game. It took me a little over 30 hours to beat the game, but I wasn't trying for any of the side quests. I'm sure if I did, you could tack on another 10 hours to my final total, hours played. You play as the reborn Amaterasu, is a wolf that has the power to use a celestial brush, that can wield her the power of the gods. You use these powers by freezing time by holding down the B button and drawing on the screen certain symbols to activate the god's power. There are 13 celestial brush techniques to learn, each wielding a different power to unleash. They're normally easy to pull off, like drawing a slashing line to do a slash attack, or a circle to reanimate trees or make the sun appear. They do become more complicated as the game progresses, but it's never anything too complicated. The celestial brush can be used at almost any time, and is only limited by the amount of ink you have. As you're traveling through the lands, you're accompanied by a small companion named Inzin. You're on a quest to kill an 8-headed dragon named Orchi, and return the cursed land back to its beautiful state. The story is actually a lot more complicated than that, but I'm just summing it up. The plot has a lot of twists and turns that you won't expect, and I am not going to spoil them for you. The graphics were just as nice as the PS2 version, although I could have sworn that the Wii version's color scheme looked duller and less colorful, but only in a minor way. It's still as stunning as ever when you use your power of the gods to restore the land's beauty. Ever since the Wii's pointing functions were disclosed, a lot of people thought it would be the perfect fit for this game. Now, playing this game, I completely agree. It was much easier to draw the figures on the screen. It did get less responsive to my figures later in the game, but not any more than the PS2 version. The same can't be said for controlling your character in combat. Now, the first Okami was always criticized for being too easy, and I have to agree with that sentiment, as I never died once while playing the original Okami for the PS2. But in the Wii version, you will die often. That was mainly due to the attack control scheme that they have set up in this game. To attack, you waggle your Wiimote, but you can't just keep waggling to keep attacking. You have to keep a certain rhythm. And while you will eventually get used to playing the game this way, there is no reason you should have to. It massively slows down the combat. Later in the game, you can get a secondary weapon which will speed things up a little, but if you've ever played the PS2 version, you will miss the fun, fast-paced action sequences that you used to enjoy. If you're a fan of the 3D Zelda games, then you will love this game since it's heavily influenced by it. You will solve clever puzzles, collect items for characters, and defeat the occasional boss, with its focus on finding a way to get to its weak spot. And usually that was a puzzle in itself, then hitting its weak spot, then rinse and repeat. As you travel through the lands, you'll meet people and animals to interact with. If you help them out or feed them, they'll give you praise, which is this game's version of experience points. You can cash in your praise for upgrades to your life bar, ink, money, or giving yourself more astral pouches. Astral pouches, when full, will revive you automatically if you die. The lands you had to travel were quite large and always fun to explore, since they give you quite a few side quests you could do. One of the strangest things in this game is when Amaterasu starts to run, she expels plants from her booty. And as strange as it may sound, it's not the first time that I've seen a game with an animal that expels something wondrous from its butt. In the game My Horse and Me, one of the mini-games, the horse would shoot rainbows out of its rear end. So that has to lead me to this question. Which one's cooler? While it is pretty impressive that a horse is so magical that it can produce rainbows out of its backside, the ability of Amaterasu to make plants and flowers come out of her derriere really is more useful. I just wish I had her when I was playing Harvest Moon. I am a bit disappointed that the Wii version is pretty much the same as the PS2 version. It would have been nice if there were some Wii exclusive levels or characters. Also, the game's story is deeply rooted in Japanese mythology, which will sometimes make it a bit confusing to understand, especially way later in the game when you meet a girl who has to return to the moon. I had no idea what was going on. My only other problem with the game is the fact they made you refight all the bosses at the end of the game. And one boss in particular, you will fight him at least 3 times, 4 if you're doing a side quest, and it can get very tedious. I'm sure I'm going to get the question, should you rebuy the game? I think it would depend on how much you love the PS2 version, and if you don't mind replaying the same game, since there's basically no difference. However, if you've never played the original, then I can't recommend this game more. You will never play a game more memorable and original than this game. Buy it now.